The Lions general manager, Brad Holmes, speaks. Get your popcorn ready.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Matt Derry with you, everybody. It's Locked On Lions on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today is Thursday, April 17th, and a Friday, April 18th. We are just, oh my God, I'm so excited. We are just 1 week away from the NFL draft. Yes, I'm very well aware that the Pistons are also going to be playing game 3 against the Knicks during the draft next Thursday night. Go Pistons. But we got a week until the Lions select at number 28 or move up or whatever. We got the Locked On NFL mock draft coming out later today. So much going on here on Locked On Lions. Thanks for making us your first listen. Checking us out wherever you get your podcasts on this Thursday into Friday. Brad Holmes speaks today. We will get into that. Will the Lions trade up? What did Brad Holmes have to say about that? There's also a wide receiver name that Trevor Sikkema from Pro Football Focus mentioned yesterday on the show. And we want to dive into that. We got a call of the day. If you want to be our call of the day, go to www.speakpipe.com/Derry podcast page. You too can be on the show. Locked On Lions today, brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Thank you to our everydayers that are out there that listen to the podcast daily, watch the podcast daily on YouTube. That includes my guy, Bill Green, great friend of the pod. We love Bill. John Manila, who I met today at the gym. Thank you, John, for checking us out. Sam Barber and Megan Brown are two of the coolest cats I know. These two ladies are awesome from Purple Squirrel Advisors. Megan loves her Lions. Had to give Megan and Sam shout outs. And then Megan says, you got to shout out Chris Cassetta and Fran Coughlin, who are both friends of the podcast and everydayers. And a happy birthday, by the way, today to the beast, the legend, the best there is when it comes to media relations in the NFL, the great Eamon Reynolds, who is an awesome dude, and the Lions director of media relations. Eamon, happy birthday, brother. Very, very good stuff. Always from Eamon on just how hard he works to help the media out with the Lions. Him, Solly, the whole crew, they're great down there at 222 Rodwood Drive. All right, lot to get into on the show today. The pre-draft press conference, a week out with Brad Holmes, took place today down in Allen Park, including at the end when he welcomed, shouted out Eamon for his birthday, and also they gave him a little cake, which was cool. But Brad Holmes was asked, plain and simple, like, what are you going to do? What are you thinking? And Brad was funny. His first answer, and he said it himself, and this is why I teased the show with it. He said, get your popcorn ready. He goes, the draft is like going to the movies. All right. You don't know what the movie's about. You know the name of the movie. You know who the stars of the show probably are, but you don't know the whole plot. Sit down, relax, and see how it plays out, basically, is what Brad is saying. He's comparing the draft next Thursday night, where the Lions select, for now, 28th, to the movies. He's like, get your popcorn ready. Because I don't think Brad knows, especially drafting that late at 28, what he's going to do, who's going to be on the board, etc. Now, one thing that Brad Holmes did say today and revealed is that he has not received any phone calls about trading up or trading down from that team's 28th pick so far. Our teams, and again, that's not a surprise because it's not draft night yet. I don't think anybody is sitting there saying, oh, we want 28, right? What teams want right now is number 3 or number 9 or something like that. So Brad has said he has not spoken with anybody yet about trading up or trading down. We know this. Brad has a history of moving up in the draft to get players. Remember, the Lions drafted Jameson Williams and moved up from 32 to 12 years ago to take Jameson Williams. And when he was asked about that today, he said, quote, that hasn't been the only year that we've attempted to do that, not at that specific position, but just for a player. It takes 2 people to do a trade. There's some teams that just don't want to go that far back. It takes 2, end quote. Holmes also didn't offer any details on what other players that he was talking about, but did talk about going up to grab a player. Last year, the Lions moved up a couple of spots to take Terrion Arnold. And again, today, Brad kind of talked about it. They want to take players that fit Detroit. He mentioned it numerous times today. It is not about drafting for need. And he smiled when he said it. We're going to take the best available players when our number is called, whether it's at 28, whether it's at 60, whether it's the compensatory third-round pick, which I think is number 102, whatever it is. He said they're drafting quality players. And then it's not about numbers. It's not about, oh yeah, we're going to trade back and accumulate a bunch of edge rushers, or last year taking 2 cornerbacks with their first 2 picks. Brad said today, quote, the way that I kind of view it is let's take care of the main thing first and just see if we can get the best football players for us first, and then we'll deal with what we have to do later. I'd rather have a surplus of good football players that we really, really like and increase great problems to have. That might increase great problems to have, but I'd rather have those great problems instead of not having great problems to have. End quote. So is he willing to trade down if that means he can get 2 players, sneezing here on the show, 2 players instead of 1 that he thinks are great? I think in reading, in kind of going through what Brad is saying about getting quality almost over quantity, is that I think he'd trade up and have less picks if he can get a player that he really, really likes. If the Lions are willing to let's say, and look, we know this, right? Look at the draft order. We know Chicago's way up there, but Green Bay and Minnesota are right there ahead of the Lions in terms of in the 20s drafting. The Lions are at 28. I think Green Bay, I think one of them's at 26, one of them's at 24, whatever it is. If there's a player at 23 or 22 that Brad must have, and he does not want Minnesota to grab him or Green Bay to grab him. And let's say that player is, we'll use it as an example from yesterday's episode with Trevor Sikkema from Pro Football Focus. Go back and watch it or listen to it. Trevor loves Gray Zabel. If the Lions love the interior offensive lineman from North Dakota State as much as Trevor Sikkema, and they feel like Gray Zabel can come in and be the starting right or left guard next year, and the Vikings, who have added some O-linemen but looking for more, Brad might think, their GM likes him. Gutekunst in Green Bay likes him. Can never have enough offensive linemen. Brad might move up to get him. So the sense that I got in watching Brad's presser today, which was a lot of word salad, and, I'll get into some other stuff in a second, but I got it that I think Brad would prefer a quality player and a move up than a move back to accumulate more players, just because all of us, including me, yours truly, thinks that, hey, Twitter world, it's yours truly, thinks that we need edge rushers, so he's just going to grab 2. I think Brad would rather get 1 great one than 2 really good ones, just because that's a need. One other update that Brad gave today was about Zadarius Smith. Asked today if there's been any more talks between the Leos and Zadarius Smith's camp. Brad said today, quote, no, we haven't had any discussions since then. That would be the owners' meetings. I think we kind of left it as that his agent would let us know if something was going on, or if anything has changed, or if we have any updates. But no, we haven't had any discussions since the annual meetings. End quote. So sounds like it's up to Zadarius Smith and his people. If he wants to come back to Detroit on a 1-year deal for cheap, great. He was scheduled to make, he counted against the cap, $6 million in terms of what a cap casualty was. Zadarius Smith, I think, was scheduled to make, $10 million? He's not going to get that now. But if he decides, as the time goes on, and Father Time is undefeated, man, I want to stay in Detroit. Yeah, I'll take a 1-year, $3 million deal and play for 1 more big contract and have a big year. That could be in the cards. But Brad Holmes says there's not been any talks the last couple of weeks. I mentioned before about a trade up. I want to get into that coming up next. There's also a wide receiver name that Trevor Sikkema brought up yesterday on the show who could be an option at 28 that nobody's talking about. And now we're going to talk about him and talk about him some more. We'll do that coming up next, right here on a Thursday edition, 1 week away from the draft edition on Locked On Lions. But first, as I mentioned before, Locked On Lions today brought to you by our friends at the Gametime app. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. And it's electric in the arena. And with Gametime, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Look, it's simple. The Pistons are playing next Thursday night, a week from tonight for Game 3 at 7 o'clock at the LCA. And then they're going to play a week from Sunday in Game 4 against the Knicks at 1 o'clock on ABC. You want to go to the games? Get the tickets on Gametime. Gametime makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Here's why I use Gametime. I love the view from your seat function. You press the tickets you want to sit at or where you want to be, and it gives you that feel so you know exactly where you're going to be sitting. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, back on Locked On Lions, Locked On Podcast Network on a Thursday afternoon. Matt Derry with you. Thanks for making us your first listen, checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Don't forget tonight, Jake Riepma, Locked On Sports Detroit. He will have the final Red Wings postcast of the year as the Wings round out their regular season. Once again, disappointing. I think they're playing Tampa Bay, but check that out with Jake following tonight's Wings game. He goes live right there on the YouTube channel. I mentioned before about trading up and Brad Holmes' philosophy on what he's going to do a week from tonight with the pick at number 28. Again, I believe Brad, when we get to that night, if there's a player that he's dying for, I think he's going to want to move up to get that guy before Minnesota and Green Bay pounce on him, whether it's an edge rusher, whether it's an offensive lineman, whatever it is. When asked today at his press conference about his high track record of moving up as opposed to moving back, and they did a lot of moving up last year to get Giovanni Manu, of course, and Sione Vaki. Brad said today, quote, "I don't really go into it like, man, I've got to trade up, I've got to trade up, I've got to trade up. But trading back is just how many of those players would be available and how much less of a player would you be getting. Or if the players are going to be the same and it looks, the more rational thing to get more assets, but it's case by case." Quote, "I don't think that where we are now as a roster is going to lessen my desire to want to go get more better football players. The more depth that you build, when the roster is harder to make, sometimes it does say, look, maybe stay patient and just see, or maybe go up and go get the guy you really want. You don't use those other draft picks," end quote. Other draft picks? Is that what Brad just said? Yes, he did. I just read you the quote. You know what I think that means? I think Brad Holmes is going to be willing to move up out of 28, a few spots, whatever it is, and then include in that deal a pick for next year. Because I think Brad Holmes is so focused right now on this year and what's out there that I think moving up a few spots, but then also having to give up the third round pick this year or something like that, I don't think Brad wants to do that. But I think maybe a future 2 or a future 3 could be the move. But again, it takes 2 to do that. But, and I was talking to John today at the gym, John Manila, who I mentioned before. And he said, what do you think they're going to do? And I truly believe 1 week away, I could change my mind tomorrow. I think they're moving up. I think a Tyler Booker could be there at 22 or 23. And Brad goes, I got to go get him. And he'll be our starting right guard for the next 10 years. Or there's an edge rusher that he likes. I think Brad is willing to up the ante a little bit and better this roster this year, to go for it this year and make that move up, than sit at 28 and hope that his guy falls. Again, we saw it with Jamison Williams. We saw it last year with a couple of those guys. We saw it with Terrion Arnold last year. Brad didn't want to wait any longer for Arnold to drop to, 27? He went up and got him. So keep that in mind. All right, I got to play you this audio clip. So yesterday, a name got floated. We know all the big name wide receivers, all right, that are out there that the Lions could go get. A couple have already visited Detroit. The kid from Texas and Egbuka has been mocked to Detroit before from Ohio State. But the name Luther came up yesterday from Trevor Sikkema. And I want you to hear this clip that was on PFF from Cris Collinsworth earlier today. And then we'll talk more after this. Take a listen.
To be perfectly honest with you, my favorite player at receiver in the draft is Luther Burden out of Missouri. I mean, he's just awesome. I mean, it's just like a Deebo Samuel with speed kind of thing. So I think Luther Burden is a guy that is going to take the league by storm. I really do. When I was watching him, I was just going, oh my gosh, there's nothing this guy does that I don't just love. And I think he's one of those, when you talk about Deebo Samuel, he plays like that, but he's faster. When you have a physical presence at the wide receiver position, it just does something to your team.
All right, so Luther Burden's name came up yesterday. And look, we've mentioned other receivers before when talking about possible fits for the Lions, but we've not brought up this kid from Missouri, Luther Burden. Trevor Sikkema did yesterday on the show, and I thought, wait a minute, Luther Burden at 28? Here's Cris Collinsworth and PFF. Collinsworth, by the way, owns Pro Football Focus. Here's Collinsworth on the PFF podcast saying, oh my gosh, I think the best guy of the group could be Luther Burden. And that's a guy that he loves. I have not heard one person, nor have I seen one mock draft that has Luther Burden from Missouri going to the Lions. But the more you hear the Lions talk, the more they have said, yes, we've got to get younger at wide receiver. Then you hear a guy that's highly respected like Collinsworth say, I love this kid. Knowing that the Lions have brought some receivers, have talked to some receivers at the combine, brought the kid from Texas in last week. All right. There's this possibility that it's there for Detroit to, I'm not going to say shock. Matthew Golden, by the way, is his last name. Why I keep forgetting his last name is my fault. But Emeka Egbuka is a name we all know from Ohio State. Matthew Golden is a name we all know because he played at Texas this year. They played Michigan. They had a really good team. They made the playoffs, all that stuff. But Luther Burden, we don't know much about other than just the blazing speed and the fact that anytime you saw any Missouri highlights, number 3 was just exploding off the page. But most mock drafts don't have him going in the first round. He's more of a second round receiver. Will he be there at 60? Some mocks, multiple round mocks say yes, some say no. But here's Trevor Sikkema yesterday saying, what if Luther Burden fell to 28? I'm like, Luther Burden? Here's Collinsworth today going, there's a lot of great receivers in this draft. Like we said, Matthew Golden and Egbuka and the kid from Arizona, all these guys. But yet, he likes Luther Burden the best. It's just a name to keep an eye on. He's got bigger size than both Golden and Egbuka, great speed, and maybe, just maybe, because we've not heard anything about him being mocked to Detroit, but this is a name that's rising. And Brad Holmes said it today. He's just going to draft good football players. No matter position. It's not about need. It's not about drafting for need. It's about, when we're at our position, who's there and what can we do? Do I think they're going to trade up to draft a receiver? No, I don't. But if they could not make that trade and couldn't move up and had to sit at 28 and somebody like Burden is on the board to add with Jamison Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Tim Patrick, and Khalif Raymond for that matter, would maybe make this offense even more explosive. And what do the Lions think about going into next year without Ben Johnson? Yes, they're going to be happy with John Morton. They hired him for a reason, but I'm just throwing it out there. It's a name to watch. Luther Burden from Missouri. All right, coming up next, call of the day. Let's do that and hear from one of our listeners. This call of the day is unbelievable, by the way. Not what I expected, but we're going to bring it up. We'll do it next. Hey, you're looking to hire somebody? How about LinkedIn Jobs? As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. And that's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. You clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly post that job and get in front of people with deep candidate insights. Here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to get qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free. Do it right now at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, folks, love hearing from our audience and our listeners and our viewers. We do that by sending you to our SpeakPipe voicemail system at speakpipe.com/Dery, DERY podcast page. And today's installment of the call of the day comes from Aaron, spells it Aaron, Aaron. And this one took the cake. I love his energy. I love that he's involved and is into this. I think his question is crazy, but we're gonna play it so you can hear it right now. Call of the day here on a Thursday Locked On Lions.
Hey, Diesels, this is Aaron in Southfield, Michigan. Just got a quick, crazy question for you. It's been on my mind the last couple of days since the NFL released the list of players that will be attending the NFL draft. Now, typically, the NFL only invites players who are expected to be first-round picks. And so most notably on that list of players is Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe, who most analysts, writers, etc., do not expect to be a first-round pick, which leads me to believe the NFL has some kind of intel that leads them to believe that Milroe will get selected Thursday night on day one of the NFL draft. Stay with me. Do you think there's any chance the Detroit Lions will select Milroe with their first-round pick? I know it sounds crazy, but of course they've had a formal meeting with Milroe. If I'm not mistaken, he's the only quarterback they met with at the NFL Combine. Hendon Hooker's got 2 years left on his rookie deal. We expect Goff to be the quarterback for the next few years. So is it possible they may want a new developmental quarterback behind Goff, reset that timeline with 5 years of team control as a first-round pick? I don't know. I may be writing a crazy clickbait article in my head, but let me know, Deez. Do you think there's any chance the Lions take quarterback Jalen Milroe Thursday night? Thanks.
Come on, Aaron. Aaron, I love you. I appreciate you being an everyday listener. I appreciate you sending that SpeakPipe voicemail to us. Is Aaron nuts? Aaron went as far as to say to take him in the first round so you get 5 years of Jalen Milroe in team control. No. If the Lions take Jalen Milroe at 28, I'm going to get on here and go, what the hell are we doing? Now, again, are they happy with Hendon Hooker? It doesn't seem like it. But he hasn't played. Maybe he's been horrible in practice. I don't know. But taking Jalen Milroe, first of all, you've got Jared Goff. So, yes, if you draft Jalen Milroe in the first, it's not happening. Why am I even talking about this? He can't. I don't even like him. Did the Lions meet with him at the combine? Yes, they did. Are they drafting him in the first round? No, they're not. No. They would be an unserious organization, in my opinion, if they took that guy at 28. Now, if they draft him at 28 and Brad Holmes hits the podium at about midnight, Thursday night of next week and goes, guess what? He's going to play receiver at first. Then I'd be like, I could understand it a little more because he's very, very fast. But this is not a first-round quarterback, in my opinion. Will he go in the first round? Yes, he will. Why? Because these teams are enamored with quarterbacks. You can't tell me Pittsburgh at 21 is not going to take him. Do I think he's any good? I don't. I watched him against Michigan in the bowl game. I know it was raining. He was a train wreck. I heard the reports. I talked to people that stood on the sidelines at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama months ago and said he could not complete a 10-yard out. A simple throw. He was bad. Now, again, goes to the combine, runs like crazy. He's a freak athlete. Got better as the season wore on. We asked Trevor about him yesterday on the show. He said, yeah, threw the ball pretty well at Alabama this year. End of the year, not so much. Combine, buffoonery. But man, oh man. No, Aaron, no. The Lions aren't drafting a quarterback in the first round. Brad Holmes just said a while ago, we think Jared Goff isn't even hit his peak yet. We think he's going to get better. I think that would be far-fetched. But I love Aaron's take and his question. And he's not wrong. Lions did meet with him, but I don't see that happening. And yes, he will be at the draft because the draft is a TV show. You want Jalen Milroe in the green room. You want that for television, whether he's going in the first round or not. All right, that'll do it for us on a Thursday edition of Locked On Lions. Thank you for making us your first listen, checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Thanks to everybody that watches and listens daily. We appreciate all of you. We are back again tomorrow.